You've got Holly and Dawn online.
Okay.
And so I have your chat pulled up for you. And I have the waiting room open so that I'll have your waiting room open so they can just pop in if they need to. Do you want a clicker or no? Do you just, you like the mouse or the
Yeah, I'll
clicks?
probably sit there.
Okay, yeah, it's more comfortable, so you can just mouse away.
I like it.
All right, so guys, this is my friend Claire. Claire's
Hi, guys.
been with KW, oh my gosh, longer than me, right?
Maybe 6, I think 6 years.
6
this
years,
spring.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
6
so
years.
we're very close,
Pretty
very
close.
close. And she's been working for Grady the whole time, right? She's been with Grady. She is the, I mean, she's the lead generation machine. She runs that whole department. Claire, why don't you tell them a little bit about what you do for them?
Yeah, so I'm the director of lead gen. I run our inside sales agent department. So for those of you that might not know what inside sales is, some people refer to it as an ISA. And really their full-time job is to lead generate. So they're calling, texting, mailing. They've been known to drive to people's houses and knock on the door.
Yeah.
Whatever it might take to get a hold of somebody. But yeah, so we just do that full time. So full time, we are generating and converting and following up, which is what we're gonna talk about today.
Exactly. So you
do all
literally cannot learn this system better from anybody else than this lady right here. If she is on the calendar, go to her class. That's all I can say. Go to her class. She will drop nothing but gold on you. She's been doing this a long time. She knows what she's doing. She knows how to convert over the phone, which most of us can only convert in person, right? So she's got all the secret sauce. Just listen to what she's got to say and give her the respect of being engaged, right? Cool. The floor is yours, my
Love
friend.
it. Good morning, guys. I guess it's not morning, it's afternoon. Good afternoon. Yeah. So as we kind of go through this too, I might refer to phone conversations a lot. So feel free to stop me and be like, so like, what about if I'm in person, or what about if I don't like to make phone calls, or whatever that might be. So a lot of my experience is more phone related. Yet when I started with Adam, we had an we call it an old CRM. It's still a valid CRM, but we had Top Producer, which is pretty like plain Jane CRM, right? Contact information. You can put notes in, you can do a reminder. And since then we've changed CRMs a couple times, and we've built this really great follow-up system. So it is really one of the things it's one of my most favorite things, and something that I got the privilege of kind of setting up from scratch with Adam. So it was really exciting. So I'm excited to talk to you guys today. So I also did print off all of these because there were some really good notes. So I apologize if I refer back, but they did have some good notes in here that I didn't want to forget to ask about. So today specifically, we are going to talk about lead follow-up. Now you guys have gone through the lead generation piece. Who taught that?
I think several people.
Several people?
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Did you guys incur any like challenges or questions or anything from that part of the program? Anything still hanging on from last time? Perfect. As we've already kind of talked about this, we're going to cover the different parts of, really it's about follow-up, but they're kind of tagging in learn lead conversion. We're going to cover how to convert a lead to an appointment, how to improve your conversion rates. Does anybody know what a conversion rate is? Anybody familiar with that?
How many times it takes to actually turn into like something that's doing something,
Yes.
like they bought or sold.
Yeah, I love it. It's exactly right. That's one of my favorite things to talk about. So we're going to talk about that. As always, we do recap and ahas to share with everybody. And then we're going to go into the daily success systems. So lead conversion.
Do you ever teach classes during the month or like calendar or?
I teach some of the Ignite classes, and then Ashton and I, so Ashton is with Holt Homes team. We had a monthly mastermind for inside sales agents that we did for a while. And we've kind of stopped. So I can pick that back up. But that would be the only one we did on a consistent basis. Every month or every other month we would meet. There's a handful. Holt Homes has an ISA team, and then there's a couple other teams or agents that have a full-time inside sales agent here in the area. The effort you give to converting leads must match the effort you give to generating them. Does anybody want to explain how that might relate to what we're going to talk about today? Anybody have an idea? So, okay, so what it's saying, and you guys, if you might be in your head, you just don't want to speak it out, but what I see commonly is people spend a lot of money generating leads, right? They do a lot of open houses, they pay for online leads, they download databases of people from their parents' phone or from something they bought online, and then they never follow up with these people. Even somebody you meet at the grocery store maybe, and they're talking about buying and selling, like, are you actually taking that phone number back and putting it in a system and checking in on it again? And what I find is a lot of people, I talk to a lot of people that buy leads and they're like, well, I'm not getting an ROI. Even people that are buying like Zillow leads, which are supposedly, some of the best leads you can buy. And they're like, oh, I don't even get my money back out of it. And it's because if you pick up the phone and they answer and they're not ready to buy or sell, how often are you checking back in with them? Most of the time, those people get lost and they never get followed up with. And it's just like when you go to the store. So say you go to Dillard's and they're going to ask you if you need any help. You're going to say no. Right? And then you're gonna keep shopping and somebody else is gonna ask you if you need any help and you're gonna say no. And then you're gonna start putting some stuff in your arms and somebody else is gonna ask you if you need help and you're gonna say no. And then your arms get really full and you go looking for a dressing room. That person that asks you then is able to help you. And real estate's no different, right? People are gonna talk to agents along the way and they're gonna pick the agents that is there when they're ready to convert. So the job of lead follow-up is to be top of mind and there and ready when they're ready to transact, because it's just like at the Dillards, right? It's the person that's there when they need help that gets the business almost all the time. So what they're saying here, well, no, a little bit of tangent there for a minute, but what they're saying there is that effort you put into lead generating also needs to be matched with lead follow-up. If you're spending, $1,000 or 10 hours lead generating, well, you probably should be spending at least 10 hours lead follow-up. And I would almost say if after you've been doing it a while, 6 months, a year, you may spend more time lead follow-up than you would even lead generating. So for us, for our ISAs, they need about 5 new leads in their database every day to keep a full pipeline. So most ISAs are nurturing, so they're following up with 300 to 400 people at a time. Some of them even as much as 500. But to keep that pipeline full, right? Because every day you're putting people on the back burner, you also need to be adding people to your pipeline to keep it at that. So our goal is for them to add 5 people that they believe are going to transact in the next 12 months every day. And so when you think about that, some days you might get those 5 people fairly quickly, and you can spend the rest of the time following up with everybody else you've already talked to. Now, when you're at the beginning of your business, you are going to spend more time lead generating than lead follow-up. You just won't have that many people to follow up with at the very beginning. But I always tell people, if you want to be in real estate in 6 months, a year, 5 years, like, you're going to want people to follow up with. So if you can put the systems in place to follow up, then there will be people there to talk to, when they're ready to transact. Do you guys have any questions on that? Any thoughts? Just out of curiosity, who's been in real estate less than 6 months? Okay, what about anybody here at a year? Over a year? Okay, what about you?
Like 10 months.
10 months, okay, very good.
Since August.
Since August, okay. Okay, so everybody's in that less than a year, less than a year range, and you've been here. I feel like I might work out with your husband.
Yes. So 2019 is when I got my agency and I didn't come here first, is my shouldn't say that. And so I'm here now.
I love it. I just friended him on Facebook. He always has wrenches. Do you guys do some property management? Yeah.
Yep, rinse
Yeah.
do.
I feel like I need to know
You
you
got some
better.
nasty shirt that says like rinse do.
Mhm.
It's more funny. We're not obviously
saw that the
awful
other day.
landlords. We're funny, but
That made me laugh. I love it. Okay, the lead conversion process. Consistently getting every possible appointment from the leads you generate isn't complicated, but it does require practice. So it does require preparation, practice, and purposeful action. So quick question to everybody. When you're having a conversation with somebody and it doesn't result in an appointment, what do you suppose, like, what do you guys typically do with that person? So you're talking to somebody, let's just pretend they have expressed some interest. There seems to be some motivation, but you don't get an appointment. What's your next step with them?
Put them on like a nurture plan.
Okay, and what does that nurture plan look like for you?
Kind of goes over like a long period of time. I kind of use a SMART plan
Uh-huh.
command. I haven't looked at it lately, but it's like giving a call like once a month or something.
Okay.
Something like that. Depends on the person, I believe.
Yeah, so the system will tell you when to contact them again. Perfect. Love that. Anybody else?
I'm horrible at this. so-
You're at home. Whoa,
Like horrible
why?
at, Follow up. So,
Follow up?
Yes.
What makes that challenging for you?
If I don't hear a response within two times that I call them or message them, I'm like,
Yeah,
and I know that's not good.
yeah, yeah. So it might be, you might be curious to know, it actually and this is really more relative to a first contact with somebody, yet I do find it can translate if people become disinterested too. But it typically takes 5 to 6 attempts to reach somebody to have the best chance of getting an answer.
Mm.
So if you're stopping before 5 or 6, you're probably selling yourself a little short,
Okay.
because 5 to 6 is the average to get an answer. Again, that's typically the first contact. Yet when somebody becomes stale, I feel like to re-engage them, it almost starts the process over. So, but that's good. That's why we're here today. So I love the plan that you have. You put them on a nurture plan. You know, calls are king. Texts are great, but text to me are a means to get somebody on the phone, right? We always want to use the text as a way to get them on the phone. I love putting them on a plan. So what I like to do, if I find somebody becomes disinterested, I don't not follow up. I'm just going to start lengthening the time in which I'm contacting them. So I'm a big fan for a new lead, somebody maybe I haven't connected with or haven't connected with in a while. I may do like a call or a text every day for that 5 or 6 days. I typically do 5 days just because it's 5 business days. It makes sense in my mind. It's nice and even and I like it. So 5 business days. And then what I'm going to do is downgrade them. So I never take my follow-up off. I just start lengthening the time it takes to reach, I reach out to them. And I'm also going to be alternating calls and text, right? So if I call day 1, I always call first, calls king. But if they don't answer, instead of a voicemail, I'm probably going to drop a text message. I'm going to leave a text message. And then the next day I might just text like, hey, just checking in. Did you get my message? And then, you know, the 3rd day I might call again, text, call, and then I'm probably going to wait 2 or 3 weeks and try again. So I'm going to try again. And then, you know, we can go through, like, most people categorize buyers or sellers as like A buyers, B buyers, C buyers, D buyers. And really that's just the length of time in which we think they're going to transact. And so you can downgrade your follow-ups, and then my last downgrade would just be to throw them on. And Command's great for this. I know all of you guys have access to Command, but Command should have like a long-term nurture that's probably like a text or an email every three months or every 6 months, something like that. That would be the last thing I would do, where I'm probably not calling that person a lot, but they're still gonna get some sort of drip from with my branding on it, so that they can see that they see me. But that's really good. So converting a lead to an appointment is a process that can happen quickly, although in some cases it can happen slowly. Shift tells us that consistently getting every possible appointment from leads you generate isn't complicated, but it does require preparation, practice, and purposeful action. It starts at the top of the model with capture. You must capture correct information and enough information to be able to contact the person. Then you move to connecting, building connection, gaining information, and building trust. And finally, it ends with closing for an appointment. Without the appointment, conversion hasn't happened. So they're just talking about the difference between capture and connect and close. If you ever talk to other agents or teams, I feel like people really kind of interchange these words too. And so I always like to verify I'm talking apples to apples. Yeah, I love what they said. I think my favorite thing about this piece was without the appointment, conversion hasn't happened. So until you so what we consider an appointment, everybody's different. What we consider appointment is a face-to-face meeting with them. So for our team, it's in the office or at the house for the listing. We do just meeting somebody at a house for a showing. We specifically don't have that as an appointment. A lot of people do. It's not good or bad. It's just whatever you consider an appointment to be. But most people would consider it some sort of scheduled meeting where you would be face-to-face and be able to show value. So has anybody here not set an appointment? Has everybody had at least, you haven't yet? Yeah, you have not? Yeah. What kind of like lead generation have you been working on? Like, what has your process been?
We're still pretty much figuring it out, but open houses is gonna be a big lead generation. Just trying to get involved with the community. Of course, with the open houses, going to be doing door knocking. That's what I got so far.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, this is exciting then. Hopefully this is really helpful for you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, then they're talking about, I feel like this one kind of repeats itself a little bit, but possible business, probable business, and profitable business. After lead generation, lead conversion is the most critical activity you must master. It is where the possible business that comes from lead generating activities can turn into probable business and ultimately into profitable business. Converting the lead to an appointment has so much importance because it's how you have a chance to learn, a chance at earning income. Converting appointments to business is a key economic success. You learn more about the converting the appointment to business starting on day 14 of Ignite. What day are we on now? 11. Okay, so that's coming up. Hi, no, you're fine, have a seat. Until then, we focus on the how and not the why. So one of the things that I wanted to kind of talk about in this particular section, and mostly because they talked about how converting the lead to an appointment has so much importance because it's how you have a chance at earning income. Converting appointments to business is a key to economic success. So for those of you that have set an appointment, who has an appointment that they set that they'd like to share how that happened? Anybody have an appointment that they've set recently that they would be open to talking to the team about how that happened?
It's
Okay.
been a while, but
Yeah.
I got a lead one time off of Snapchat.
Mhm.
And then I just posted a picture on my story and it had the Keller Williams location on it. It's
Mhm.
like, do you work there or are you buying a house? And I was like, well, I actually work here, and told him I was an agent and yada yada,
Mhm.
and stuff. And since we haven't been in contact for a while, but he's like, I want to buy a house. So then like, I was like, okay, great. And so I just like basically set an appointment like right
Mhm.
then and there.
I
But
love it. And how did you ask? Like, did you just straight up ask, or like, how did you close for the appointment? Do you remember?
it's been a while, but I think I kind of like started off with like, so like, what makes you want to buy and
Mhm.
stuff like that, like his big why and everything.
Mhm.
He's currently a renter, so like he's a first time home buyer, so he didn't know much about it and stuff. And I was like, hey, how about we like set up an appointment and I can go over all that information for you and you kind of get an idea of like
Yeah.
how the buying process works and
Yeah.
kind of go from there. And
Yeah.
then that's kind of how it went.
I love that.
And he's like, great, I'm in.
Okay. So you showed some value, you asked good questions, you showed some value, and then you asked him to come meet with you. Yeah, that's awesome. Did he end up meeting with you?
Oh, yeah,
Good.
we got a meeting, I got a buyer's agreement signed. He's working on like some financing right now first, but it's a little long-term plan
Yeah.
too, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. Yeah, I love that. You know, what I find really common with people starting out is they think it has to be like this magical script to ask an appointment. And a lot of times you're just asking for their business. You know, if you lead with contribution and value and just like, hey, you know, it sounds like you could use some help, you know, in this process. Like when, a lot of times I don't ask them if they want to meet, I ask them when would be a good time for you to meet at our office. Right. So when it comes to closing, we want to be really direct with those questions, right? We want to take, I've heard people call them squishy words, which I use a lot in my normal vocabulary, like maybe, kind of, should have, could have, you know, would you like to? And when you're closing, you really need to be putting on a different hat. If that's your normal script, and you want to be a little more assertive, and you're going to ask questions like, you know, when can you meet with us? You know, when we go see the house, you know, we will do this. You know, when we meet, I'll have paperwork ready for you to sign. So things like that, you know, there's a lot of different scripting you can go into too, but being more authoritative and watching the words that you use when you're closing with people, you know, that you're, you know, because a lot of times what you'll find if you tell people, like you're a gentleman, especially first-time home buyers, they don't know what the process is. You're actually the one that's telling them how the process goes, right? Actually, so for me, it'd be, well, before we meet, I need you to go get approved at the bank. So that's a big one. That's a huge one we have right now. And it's honestly the biggest objection that I have somebody ghost me over is I won't meet with them if they don't give me a pre-approval letter. And it's a tough one. We talked about it on 2 different team meetings this week because we require it in a lot of cases, and you know, and it's hard as an appointment setter, right? It's what I do. It's hard to not feel like you lost an opportunity for the team. But I'm like, well, at the end of the day, if they're not willing to get pre-approved, maybe they can't get pre-approved. You know, and I just saved my team. But anyway, that's a tough struggle we have right now. It's one of my biggest objections I get from meeting in the office. It's not that they don't want to meet with us, it's that they don't want to do the things they need to do to be prepared to meet with us. And that's a really big challenge. So something that I'm working on right now with myself and my team. I actually lost one this morning that way. As soon as I asked her for that, she got real short with me and hung up the phone. I said, okay, well, guess we're not doing that.
How did you end up in this role?
How did I end up in this role?
Yes.
I'm not really sure how I did that. Cool. So Adam, I got my license, weirdly enough, right outside of high school. I lived in a little town called Willow Springs, Missouri. And there was a realty office there that had helped my parents buy and sell a farm. And I interned there during high school. And I worked there for 2 years. Basically, I guess almost like a showing partner. I don't know. I was basically the owner's assistant. Sometimes I watched her kids. Sometimes I mailed stuff for her. Sometimes I answered the phone. Sometimes I showed houses. It was really whatever she needed me to do. And I moved to Springfield 2 years after that and ended up letting my license go. I didn't know anybody in Springfield. You know, I was finished in college. Like I just wanted a job to pay rent. And after a couple of years after I graduated, I reached back out to her because she had a sister that lived in Springfield who was with Bank of America, and I decided to buy a house. And I said, hey, I need an agent. Who would you recommend? And Adam was on the list. And Adam had just started. I think he'd been in the business a couple of years. And so Adam and I connected that way. He helped me sell my house when I got married a couple of years later. And I just followed him on Facebook. We kind of kept in touch. And I saw an opening pop up 6 years ago, and I was with a software company for 11 years. So all of my customers were remote, right? I did everything remote. Everything was over the phone. All my clients were remote. All the coworkers I worked with were remote. And I was ready for a change. And this job popped up, and it's actually really funny. I called Melinda every week for 6 months until she hired me. I met with them, I wanted it, and they kept putting me off. I called her every week for 6 months. And she actually said, later on, I find out that's one of the reasons they went ahead and did it, because what do you do as an ISA? Right, you follow up with people for a really long time. And I just kept at it. And anyway, so yeah, I got hired, and I did it by myself for about a year and a half. And then we hired Christina. And then I have 5 ISAs altogether, 6 with myself. So yeah, so it's a long, crazy ride, but I do like it. And because of that, I will say, the real estate is just so cool. And it's such a cool thing to see all of you here. You know, I think I was making 50 grand a year. 45, no, I was thinking like 40, 43. My goal was to get to 50. And, I never could have dreamed, the money that could be made in real estate, and to the point that, my husband and I, we now have 5 or 6 rental properties on top of that. And so it's just really cool, how real estate can change people's lives. So it's really exciting to see all of you here. So, okay, so we just wrapped up the beginning of capturing the lead. Do you guys have any questions or ahas on that? Okay, moving on. How to convert a lead to an appointment. Let me just jump around a little bit here. I feel like I've already jumped the gun on some of this. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Let's see, there should be a lead capture page in your participation guide. At its simplest, capturing is collecting the minimum amount of valid contact information for a potential buyer or seller. This should include their names and a way to get a hold of them, such as email, phone number. This will most likely occur when you are lead generating. Curiosity question for you all. We talked about this a little bit, but what are some of your methods of capturing leads? So what are you guys doing to get people's information?
Open houses.
That's a good one. What?
FSBOs.
FSBOs. It's a good one. What else? Anybody doing anything different than open houses and for sale by owners?
I want to start trying SOI.
Okay. I love it. What's kept you from trying SOI?
I don't know. I kind of feel more comfortable like calling people that I really don't know, because like I'll probably never see them again. But like in the SOI, like they know who I am.
Sure.
So it's kind of what kind of holds me back.
Sure. Yeah. No, I have the same. I have that same sort of mindset on Sphere. I call FSBOs all day long over the calling my friends and family sometimes. So what part of, like, what makes you uncomfortable about calling them?
Hmm. I don't know, maybe that fear of like rejection from
Mhm.
somebody that you know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the type of person that don't like want to be annoying or anything to them.
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
essence.
Definitely, yeah. I remember being afraid that they would think, I get annoyed when people, that I haven't talked to in a while, reach out and they just want to basically to get my business on something, right? I didn't want to be that person. And I was like, oh, I don't be that person. Sorry. But I will tell you, one thing that might be really, really helpful is I think that one fear, and I think there's a lot of people in your shoes and my shoes, like I don't think we're uncommon here in this thought. And I think the best thing to do is to make the phone call and don't feel like you have to bring up real estate. Right? Sometimes I think you have to start making the phone call and rebuilding that connection with people before you talk about real estate. Right? So what, like, are you afraid to make the call if you don't have to talk about real estate?
Not really.
Not really, yeah. So make the call. Yeah. And what you'll find when you make the call, there's some things you can do to probably build up the likelihood that they will ask about real estate. So like when you're making those phone calls, if they work somewhere, right? How's your job going? A lot of times they will reciprocate the question, right? Ask them about their job. What are you doing? How are your kids? How's, whatever, make conversation. I still count that as a real estate contact, especially if you're doing it with the purpose of being able to bring up real estate maybe on the second call or the third call, like make the phone call, you can always end if you wanted to, or you felt like the conversation was open to it, you can always end with, hey, I'm not sure if you're aware or not, I did, get my real estate license and I'm really excited to be helping people, buy and sell homes. Do you know of anybody that may be looking to buy or sell? Because again, that's another great way. You're not asking them if they're going to buy or sell. You ask them if they know anybody, because if they are looking to buy or sell, they're going to mention themselves when you ask about everybody else, right? And you can even build them up a little bit, like, hey, I know you're really connected with a lot of people. Do you happen to know anybody that may be looking to buy or sell? So those are really great ways to kind of lead into that can sometimes ease that anxiety of calling our friends and family. Like my mom and dad, I don't care, I'm going to just say it, but it's like my immediate family isn't bad, but anybody on that second layer, those were the people I had more anxiety about calling. Yeah. So hopefully that helps. Yeah, but in my opinion, you're better to make the call and just not bring up real estate. Yeah, at some point you probably need to, otherwise it may not make an impact, but a lot of times asking them about their job or what they're doing. Also on that note, I'm gonna scroll for just a second, but how many people ask you how the market is? A lot. What's your answer?
I usually like to state it's great, why do you ask?
Exactly right, there you go. Okay, just making sure everybody has that script. The market's always good, it's great, why do you ask? I love it, great job. Adam would be so proud, everybody has that script.
Heard so many times from my coach,
Yeah. Love it, that's great. Okay, so capturing, no, I already went through this. So when we get their information, I will be honest, phone number to me is king. Only in the last year has email become more important. Our CRM requires an email to put them in the system. Does Command require an email?
No, but I'm thinking for the most effectiveness, they almost need the email versus the phone number. I don't know. I'm sure they're both important, but
Yeah,
smart plans, I would think they're emailing out so much.
yeah, yeah, definitely the plans, yeah, need an email. But a lot of the plans, I don't know if a lot of them, maybe not. The ones we use, most of them will text and email. So a lot of times, whatever it's texting, it's emailing too. And so, just so they'll see it either way. Yeah, so most, and if you ever hear Dan Holt talk about it, he considers a lead somebody that he has phone number, email, name, and permission to follow up again. So everybody calls leads different, different things. I would definitely consider that the definition of capture. So for my team, we would really call that a nurture. A lead is any random name or number of the system, right? For us, a nurture is somebody that we have all their contact information for, permission to follow up. And in our case, we have a timeline that's typically within 12 months that we think they're going to do business. So when I mentioned 5 nurtures to the system a day, right, of all the people they talk to, we're wanting them to add 5 new people to their pipeline that we have name, phone number, email, and permission to follow up with, and a timeline. But some people's timelines change. Does anybody know what the typical stat is on a buyer's timeline? So if a buyer says they're going to transact in 12 months, what time frame do you think they typically transact in? 6. Exactly right. For buyers, you could almost cut it in half. So if a buyer tells me 12 months, now my first question is why 12 months? What's important about 12 months? Just to see, for some people, there's a condition, school's out, right? Bankruptcy's over at that point. That's when my lender says my credit will be fine, whatever that might be. So sometimes there is a condition, which a condition is different than an objection, right? A condition is something we can't change, right? We can't change when their bankruptcy time is up. We can't change when their kids graduate. We can't change, when their parents retire, right? Can't change any of that. An objection would be, oh, interest rates are too high, right? An objection is just a reason to not meet. A condition is something that would cause them to not be able to meet until a certain time. So make sure you're listening for the two, right? Objections are something we can probably work on and have a better answer for that might help get people move forward. A condition, is something that we necessarily can't change. But one good thing to still ask with a condition or an objection too, you could use it depending on the objection, great, like your kids won't be out of school for a year. I totally get that. So just so I'm sure, if the perfect property were to show up in, let's say, 6 months, would you want me to not send that to you? So you're trying to get a feel for how tight is that condition, because then they'll either be like, oh, well, no, like I definitely want to see it. Like I could totally do something earlier. Like, oh, okay, so it's not really 12 months. And those kind of questions are what's going to help you with your follow-up. Because if you're following up with them as a 12-month follow-up and you call them in 9 months and you find out they already bought with somebody, right? We didn't ask enough questions to realize, oh, it's not necessarily 12 months. It's they want to be moved in 12 months, yet it's really about finding the right property. And they would actually, change up their life a little bit if the right property came up, right? Those are people then, great. That's why we need you to come in and meet with us, right? That's where we go to set the appointment then, right? Sounds like if the perfect property came up, you would want to know about it. Well, we need to meet so I know exactly what you're looking for so I can get it set up. Yeah, so go through all that. Whoops, we don't want to change it. I feel like I got out of presenter mode. There we go. Conversation frameworks. So how to get their contact information. So they do go into some stuff on how to get their contact information. If I were to need to contact you, what number would that be? I found exactly what you were looking for. How would I contact you? Do you guys find it difficult to get information from people?
Yeah.
To reach out to them? You do? Tell me an example of what that looks like for you.
Just like on open houses, like the sign-in sheet, I haven't verbally asked for it, I've only, so that could be a big indicator.
Yeah.
But other than that,
Okay. Yeah, and open houses, who has a great script for open houses to get people's information? Anybody, do you have one?
Well, I think I do. So I like to blame it on the sellers, like the owners of the house. I usually go like, we just ask people to sign in, so like the sellers know who's been in their house just for safety purposes. And more than likely, they always sign. Like I've had some people say like, I don't want to leave my information, and then that's when I go to like, well, then would you mind leaving like your agent's information?
Okay.
So.
Oh, that's a great rebuttal to that, yeah. Yeah, no, we would use something very similar, you know, this, the sellers, would really like, a record of who's been in their house. So if you could sign in, that would be really great. Yeah. If anything like that, again, you're just doing what they're asking you to do, right? Just, you know, providing, that information back. That's really great. One of the things that Adam's done that's always stuck in my mind, is he doesn't carry business cards with him. When he talks to people, if they want his information, he's like, you know what, I don't have any cards with me. And he pulls out his phone. He says, what's your number? I'll text you. And then he gets the phone number. Right? So that's a really great way to get people's information. I have an iPhone, so there's like a notes app. I use that all the time. I have random notes from all sorts of things. But if I talk to people on the weekends that give me their information, I'm putting it in there so I can put it in my CRM later. So if I don't have anything to write on, I have a page in there that I use. Basically, it's like a scratch page to put notes on that helps me write down that information as I get it. Anybody else struggle with getting phones or emails from people? I would say open houses is probably a tough one. You know, leads that come other ways, you know, might have some of that information in them. Is anybody here buying leads at all? Purchasing leads, are you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't keep it on as much as I should, but through Opcity I am.
Okay, very good. And do you get most of their contact information through that?
Oh yeah, it's not an issue at all.
Yeah, that's awesome. Connecting. Connecting is about laying the foundation for a working relationship. What is important during this step is to listen, ask good questions, offer solutions, and keep the focus of the conversation on them. The goal of the communication is, in addition to building the relationship, is to determine their urgency, give enough information to know how to prioritize this lead, and help you know what touch campaign you can use as a follow-up plan. As you communicate and connect, please keep these best practices in mind. Embed your value proposition in the conversation. Role play and practice conversations. And know the outcome you want from a conversation before starting. Use questions to lead the conversation. Use backward design when thinking about your food. Oh, I get it now. Hey, does anybody have an example? I would call this, like, if I had to put this in like, you know, I guess a nutshell or a box or something, I would just call it like, how do you build rapport with people? You know, how do you, to me, this almost even translates to the SOI thing a little bit, right? Like, how do we build rapport with people and not come across as salesy? You know, how do we have people that want to work with us because of the questions we've asked them versus feeling like they got backed into a corner and now have to meet with us? Does anybody have, you know, a script or a phrase or anything they do that they think helps build rapport with people?
I usually just start talking to them about, they're from the area, then from there I'll go to see, you know, where they're from, how come they moved to the area? Or has it changed a lot? They're older, then they like, old people like talking about their past, so.
It's true.
And I like listening, so.
Yeah, that's
But,
awesome.
yeah, I don't know.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very good. Anybody else?
Whenever I go door knocking, I just kind of, once I ask them about them and what their plans are, I'll just kind of tell them a little bit about me and say something like, I don't like to think of myself as a salesperson. I just want to build a relationship with people and help people that way. And then normally after I say something like that, the conversation normally goes a little deeper, you know, wherever it goes.
Yeah.
So, and then they seem to trust me more.
Good. I love that. Okay, so, you know, you kind of say up front, you know, that you're there to help people and take the conversation from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds like you try to kind of find some common areas of interest and kind of build from there. Those are both really great, really great strategies. Yeah. Yeah, one of the really great ways, another really great way to build rapport is to ask questions about them or their life. People like talking about themselves. And so what you want any rapport type conversation to look like, you want it to look like you're talking 25% and they're talking 75%. So goals would be some really great questions that you could use to get to know them. And honestly, like for me, like the more, again, right, I only talk to people, right? I don't get the facial expressions at all of the face-to-face, like a lot of you guys do talking to people face-to-face. So my rapport questions also go in line with, as I'm talking to these people, it's gonna sound really stupid, but it's almost like there's a red light here and a green light, and I'm waiting for one to ding. Like, is this person ever gonna transact? Like, are there red flags? Like, this is a little red light over here. And as they start answering questions and they sound good, like my green light gets a little bit, I'm like, okay. Like, this is definitely somebody I want to keep in touch with. And so a lot of that starts with like, so I took a sign call today and it was on a property in Collins, which is just so far from here. But they wanted to see it, you know, and I said, awesome, I'm so glad you called us. What has you looking at homes today? Right, first question, right? Open houses, right? Hey, you could be doing anything this afternoon. What has you out looking at houses today? You want to go for motivation first, because motivation is a really big rapport building tool. When people will open up about what's important to them about their move, you're building massive rapport with that people. Again, people like to talk about themselves and they want to connect with people that care about what's important to them, right? So have you ever heard somebody refer to going 3 deep into motivation? Is there anything you guys have heard about? So it's something we talk about a lot in the inside sales agent role, but the agents do this at listing and buyer consults, open houses, all that type of stuff. And what that looks like is it's a language pattern. And I'm going to ask you, what has you looking to buy a house today?
I just got a new job.
Okay, you got a new job. Awesome. What kind of job did you just get?
I just got transferred over from Texas. It's in HR.
Okay, awesome. So what's important about buying a house in correlation with your job?
I'm moving to the area from Texas, so I gotta find a job.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're moving to the area.
I gotta find a house.
Yeah. What made you decide to buy instead of rent?
'Cause I think I'm gonna be here for a while.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. What's your time frame look like?
I say I start my job in like a month and a half here.
Okay. So what happens if we can't find you a house in a month and a half?
I'm gonna be scrambling to find anything.
Okay, gotcha. So it sounds pretty important that you get here in the next month and a half and get closed in a month and a half, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds really important. Awesome. I can definitely help you do that. When's the time that you can come back to my office and meet with my team?
Tomorrow?
To see how he was pretty cut and dry. Some people are a lot more vague. vague than you were easy on me. But basically you're taking their question and you're gonna take you ask a question, you take their answer and you're gonna use a piece of that answer and ask another question. Right? And so you just layer on the questions until you get a good idea for what their motivation is, right? He's moving to the area and he doesn't want to rent, like he's got to find a house and close in the next month and a half. You know, it's actually pretty common, like we get people like that sometimes too. So that's a little more cut and dry, but all of that, I mean, how much rapport did he and I build by me asking so many questions? Right? He probably feels like I have a good understanding, you know, for what he's looking for. Now, if I was really setting an appointment, I would have had about 12 more questions for you, but stop at that. Okay, do you guys have any questions on connecting with people? So, 6 connection questions. Here we are. Who are they? What do they want or need to do? Where do they want or need to do it?
I have a question.
Yes.
So like an open house, I have an issue where I can't stop talking to people sometimes, even though I know they're not a good lead, right? Because they already have an agent or whatever. So then there's other people there that I know I should be talking to. How do I cut them off? Because then like it's both of us talking, you know, and I feel kind of like bad, just be like, hey, I gotta go.
Yeah. Let's see.
Cause like they're showing me their pets, their kids on their phone. I'm like.
So I might do just kind of like, oh, hey, I am so sorry. Let me go greet these people that just walked in. Like, hey, I'm so sorry. Thank you for coming in. I will follow back
Yeah.
up with you. Let me go greet these people that came in. And it kind of comes down, if you have a system and process, when they came in, you probably greeted them, asked them to sign in, told them a little bit about the house and gave them a flyer, right?
I give them a clipboard with like, for them to give us feedback.
Oh, perfect.
And
Yep.
The MLS
Yeah.
sheet.
Yeah. So if you're doing that, then they would probably recognize that you need to go do that for the next person
Okay.
that comes in. Yeah. So when I'm on the phone, the next quarter hour, I'm like, I got a meeting in 3 minutes. I got to get off the phone, you know, or, oh my gosh, my clients just got here for our 10:15, 10:20, 10:22, whatever time it is. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to go. So it's very similar, but yeah, I mean, when I've been at an open house, like that, it's a little bit awkward. Most people understand, like, hey, like, I promise I will be, you know, I'll come back and we can finish this up, but I need to go greet the people that just came in. Yeah. I think everybody's open house style is a different way. One way that I see a lot of people do it is they don't necessarily follow people throughout the house. They're staying right there at the front. So it kind of leads to being easy to, you know, obviously somebody just came in, I need to go greet them. So I would try that and see if that helps.
Okay.
Anybody else run into that and have a solution?
I just wait by the door like you just said, and if somebody comes in, I use that.
Yeah. And do you get a lot of pushback on that, or people pretty understanding?
No, they're really understanding.
Yeah.
They just go check out the house and I say, well, let's get together and talk about it after, and I'd love to hear your thoughts or whatever.
Yeah, it's great. Love it. So they have the 6 connecting questions. These are all great questions. Who, what, where, why, when, and how. So for my inside sales agents, I always have them at the very beginning create a sheet of open-ended questions that they have up in front of them in their computer. Because sometimes, we do this in person too, we don't always know what the next, like we know we don't understand everything, but we're not always sure what question to ask next. And so some of these are great questions. One of my favorites is tell me more about that. That works almost all the time. It can translate to almost anything. Tell me more about that. That's a great one. You know, can you give me some more detail? You know, why is that important to you? Those are all really great open-ended questions that I would probably start internalizing. If you don't even need that many. If you have like 3 to 6 like solid questions that work in a lot of situations and you can internalize those, it can really help keep the conversation going. So I called, my husband wants storage units. If you guys know of any storage units coming up, call me. He really wants a storage unit. So he drove by these and he's like, Claire, can you call these? And I was like, okay. So I called them, sweet old lady. And I said, hey, are you interested in, selling your storage units? And she said, no, and then just stopped. And I was like, oh gosh, where am I gonna go from here? So then I just went, then I just switched to rapport building mode. So I'm like, well, I totally get that. Thank you so much. How long have you guys had them? Why have they been a great investment? Do you keep them full? Like yada, yada, yada. And we talked for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And by the end, she's like, you know what? Let me talk to my husband. Let me see if he is interested. I said, okay, well, thank you so much. Haven't heard back from them. I don't think they're interested. But it's that connecting thing, sometimes I have found a lot of success if I get stopped. If I like, okay, I just got like stonewalled, right? So I'm gonna take a couple steps back and like, let's go back and build some more rapport. And sometimes you can push back, you can push past that point once some rapport has been built. So anyway, good, 3 to 6 great open-ended questions. Do you guys know what I mean when I say open-ended?
Where they have to answer it. They have to fill in the blank.
Yeah, they can't answer with yes or no. Yeah, a closed-ended question would be something they can answer yes or no to, right? And then you get stopped, right? Are you looking to sell your storage buildings? Nope. Okay, I got nothing now. Yeah, once I got past that, then we built some rapport. Definitely somebody I feel super comfortable following up with too. So that's always a good thing. They also mentioned at the bottom of this, I don't know if it's in your guides or not, they mentioned the Ford method. Are you guys familiar with the Ford method? So that's something you guys talk quite a bit about. Yeah, family, what is that? Family, occupation, recreation, dream, is it dream?
Yeah.
Dream. Yeah. Not one I use. I shouldn't say that. I don't know. I just probably don't go through. I don't say Ford in my head and recognize it. In your participation guide, you will also find a list of questions to go through the connection process, cultivate the relationship. Oh, so they do make a note about being sure to document conversations and their outcomes in your database. Immediately after talking to the potential buyer or seller, keeping a strong, well-documented record of communication will help you know how to move the relationship forward. Who here puts conversation notes in their CRM? Anybody else? Okay. It's key. I was just talking to Christina. I mentioned she was my first ISA hire. She's still with me. She's the SOI queen. If you ever come up to our office, talk to Christina. I can't tell you how many pieces of business she's brought in from, having a drink at a bar or something like that, but she's great at it. She is really good about putting notes in the system. All of the ISAs are, it's part of our job. And you can do it, there's lots of different ways you can do it. I have some agents, I know Command lets you do this, where you can call and text from Command. And when you do that, it, I don't know, you guys, does anybody call or text from Command? No. So most CRMs, when you do that, it's going to record the call to a certain extent. So like our CRM, if I call from the CRM, it literally pops up a box and it says, how was your conversation? Put the notes in, right? For me, I wear a headset. If you guys don't have a headset, like if you're going to lead generate for an hour or two, like get a headset connected to your phone, keep your hands free. That way you can type, you can take notes while you're calling people. The notes are like crucial because Christina, she's just the queen at this, right? She calls somebody, she does a lot of quarterly calls. She's following up with a lot of our past clients. She's following up with some of our agents SOI, and she keeps really great notes. They're actually pretty funny notes too. They're kind of funny to go back and read, but she, when she calls, she does a great job of referencing, like these people feel like she is just like their only client, right? She knows their name. Obviously she knows their name, right? It's in the system, but she's got notes about what they've talked about, like what they're going through, like their family, their kids, their pets, whatever it might be. And her conversations with them are really, really easy. And she gets tons of referral business. I'd have to pull the numbers. I think 1 year, I think almost half her business came from referral business from past clients. Some of the past clients weren't even her. Some of them were some of Adam's old past clients that she just been following up with. She just does a really good job. And she was telling me this morning how important those notes are to her conversations, because it's what makes her equipped to have good conversations quarter after quarter after quarter with those people. So it's really important. It might not seem like it, maybe 6 months or a year in, but guys, at some point, you guys are gonna have so much business, you will literally forget about people. 10 years from now, you're not gonna remember the person you talked to today. And so if you don't have notes in the system, whether you're calling them, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now, or you have a team of people calling them for you, like you're gonna wish those notes were in there. So I highly, highly recommend keeping a note in there. And for me, if you're lead generating, have the client up in front of you, while you're calling them, just put the notes in as you're talking to them. Most of the time, by the time I'm done calling them, I've saved my notes and I've already moved my next call date to them, and then I hang up the phone. Like I know as we're wrapping up the call, when I'm gonna call them next. And so I'm either putting them on a plan or I've set the next call date and I've hung up. So as soon as I hang up, I'm ready to call the next person. All right, cultivate. Your goal in using the lead generation lead conversion model is to move immediately from capture to connect and to close. However, you'll find a small percentage of leads that won't be ready to convert to an appointment to keep mind share. So it says a small number. I actually think that that's not correct. I actually think you're more likely to find somebody you have to cultivate than somebody that's ready for an appointment that day. I mean, our typical conversion right now is like 3.5% to 4%, meaning from contact to appointment. So I have, for every 100 people I talk to, on average, I'm gonna get about 4 appointments, right? So it takes me 25 contacts right now to get an appointment. And that's for somebody who's been doing it 6 years, right? So I actually don't agree with that. I think that your cultivate is actually gonna be higher than your appointment. So, and that's why we've spent so much time talking about it, because most of the time, I think another statistic is it's an average of 7 contacts for that one lead to get an appointment. That's an ISA statistic. Obviously, it goes down as far as the number of conversations. I think the closer you are to that person, if it's your SOI, you might meet somebody at an open house that sets an appointment to meet right then, right? So getting face-to-face, if you're doing lead generation face-to-face, I definitely think it can close the gap on that in some cases. But even as me as a phone person, like if I get a sign call, I have a really high chance of getting an appointment on the first phone call versus if I'm calling a FSBO. FSBO average, it takes me at least 7 to 10 phone calls to get, to typically get them to do, they're either, the FSBO is either the person that's going to go ahead and meet with agents and list right away, like they're just going to throw their hands up, or they're going to want to test out the market for 3 or 4 weeks before they ever consider selling the house. At least that's what I'm finding right now. But it's an average of 7 conversations with the same person before they will set an appointment. So that cultivate, you think about that, most of your people end up in cultivate, and you would have to check in with them on an average of 7 times before they're ready
So like
to
for
transact.
this bills, what about the ones that just want text message and they don't want you to call them?
See, that my little red light over here is going off. Oh my God, I gotta put you in the system and you're never gonna answer my text message. And So that being said, I'm a glass half empty sort of person. So while I'm gonna grumble about it, I'm gonna put them in the system and I'm gonna follow up with them. I'm probably gonna I follow up with FSBOs every week. I don't care if they tell me not to call them for a month, I call them every week. Like if you're on the market still, I'm still calling you every week, again, top of mind awareness. Oh, I just hate that. Again, I'm a phone person. Like, I'm not, I had a text message. It's basically, it's them saying, no, thank you.
Okay.
No, thanks.
What,
No, thanks.
what about whenever they have an answering service? People, you know what I'm talking about? Like you call them, but they have an answering service that answers their phone
Like a Google Assist.
or something like that. I have no clue.
I've had a couple that have had like an assistant answer their phone.
Okay.
That was difficult. Yeah, I mean, they're a gatekeeper. They're like me with the pre-approvals for our buyer's agents. I'm like, sorry about you, you gotta have pre-approval. Yeah, I mean, they're gatekeepers. It's tough. So we get leads a lot of times that are like, oh, my mom's looking, my brother's looking. You're not talking to the decision maker. That's really tough. The answering service is the same way, you know? Now that being said, I think there's two strategies. One, you just keep trying. You know, it really doesn't, the texting thing, you know, I'm gonna keep trying. I will tell you, I personally haven't had anybody tell me that they would only communicate through text, but I don't text them. I only call FSBOs. I never send them text messages.
Okay.
If they're not gonna answer the phone, so maybe that's why I don't get that. Some of my ISAs have gotten that, but they've also been dabbling in the texting of them. And I will tell you, I went back, I had somebody tell me this in November. I went back and we looked at all of her FSBOs. She never had one, and she was a good FSBO converter. She was with me for nine or 10 months, and she had 5 or 6 for sale by owner closings in that time, right? She's a pretty good converter for sale by owners. Not one that she contacted via text message ever set an appointment. They didn't even set an appointment, much less go to close. And so I just don't think it's effective. Yeah, I don't text. I also, yeah, I don't text expireds either. Don't do it. Phone call, and I will tell you, your CRMs, other places you can get these voice over IP phone numbers, right? So you can call from the system. Sometimes they show up spammy on people's phones, like for anything like a FSBO, expired, SOI. Again, my headset, it'll connect to my phone or my computer. And I type in the number, I just hand dial out of my cell phone. I just get a much better answer rate. Again, phone is king. And one of the biggest obstacles we're gonna have as real estate agents with lead generating and following up is getting people on the phone. So many phones now come with FAMS filters that are already preset, right? Unless you go in and change them, it's automatically voicemailing certain phone numbers and things like that. And it's going to be one of the big challenges. I'm kind of interested to see, you know, if what ends up coming of that. You know, obviously text messages can be great, but again, I use them as a way to get somebody on the phone. It's just, yeah, it's a real challenge. Well, you can't know or predict when they will come to a decision, but if you're reconnecting with them in a systematic way, you'll have a great chance of being there when they do. And that's when you'll be able to close for an appointment. And that kind of comes back to the Dillard's analogy I gave, right? The point of follow-up is to be top of mind, engage their awareness. So just out of curiosity, so I call you and you ask me really great questions and I'm for sure 6 months out, right? For sure 6 months out. When are you calling me? When are you going to contact me again?
You should be sooner, but who knows?
Just tell me, just,
Well, I
there's
won't,
no right or wrong
I
answer.
won't be, what's it called? I won't have it like set in stone.
Mhm.
I'll just call you whenever I feel like it, which is not good.
You're scaring me over there. Well, making me nervous. Start sweating over here. So how will you remember to call that person?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're gonna be swamped with leads. Right? Like, what if we all have this really abundant type of mindset? Like, you guys are gonna be swamped with leads. Like, how are you gonna remember to call that guy back? You're gonna talk to 50 more people in the next month that are amazing. Like, how are you gonna remember to call John Smith back?
I'm not.
You're not, yeah. You know who's gonna get him?
Somebody else.
Yeah, whoever's there, right? Whatever open house he goes to, at the moment, whoever happens to call his phone or get his Zillow inquiry or get his website registration, like they're gonna be his agent. Yeah. What about you? If I was moving in 6 months, buying in 6 months, when would you contact me again next?
Ideally, I'm going to maybe fib a little bit and say, I know your timeline's 6 months, but I saw this today. And like even if it's an email or a text,
Okay.
like I'm gonna text them something that's live now.
Okay.
And even if they think, like, and you can engage with them later and be like, even if they like it or dislike it,
Mhm.
ask them why they did or did not like it.
Mhm.
And you're still showing them it's not time, but you already mentally are preparing for when it is their time.
Okay.
And you're caring about what their needs and wants are. Does that make
Sure.
sense?
Yeah.
And so like, I know it's an easy way to connect with them and talk to them and it gets them excited.
Mhm.
And because they know they're gonna buy, so usually they're excited anyway and they wanna go and look.
Mhm.
You don't wanna waste your time, but you still wanna like trickle in some ideas, like, look at this one that just came in today. Like,
Mhm.
you wanna be
Yeah.
intriguing.
I love that. So you're really coming from like a value, like I'm just gonna pepper them with some value.
But I had no system. I always just had it in my head.
Yeah.
It was awful. And like, I just had folders with people's names on it and I'd be like, oh, that girl. And like I just had zero systems. So I'm not saying I failed, but you guys have systems here. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. I love it. I definitely think that's a great strategy. I do think though, the busier we get, that strategy can sometimes fail us just because we forget.
Yeah.
You know, Susie isn't important anymore because I have Betty and Bob and Joe and they're all more ready than Susie is. But then 6 months comes here and you call Susie. Oh man, I just went under contract. Shoot, I missed it. You know, who's reached out to somebody that already bought? Missed them. Anybody had that pain yet? Yeah.
I always look at it and like,
Yeah.
think at least they like signed up with my friend. And if it's not your friend, then you get insulted.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to let them go. But whenever it's somebody that you don't like, or you know, you're like, how the heck do we know that person? You kind of
Yeah.
just get burned.
Yeah.
You have to let it go.
Yeah. Anybody have like see a friend or family member's house pop up on the MLS yet? Yeah. I have too. It's really painful. Yeah. And I always go back to, you know, I think the best mindset is, well, yes, let it go, right? Can't, you know, but I always go back to what didn't I do that if I had done, they would have called me first, you know, did I reach out enough? Like in some cases, there are people that I was like, I mean, they just bought 2 years ago. I didn't reach out because why would they buy again? Right? Well, I assumed I didn't ask the question. I never called them and asked, you know, because I'm in real estate fans, you know, do you love your house? You know, things like that. So, so systematic is the key. Everybody here has access to command, right? In command, you can set, is it a reminder or a task to call again? Task, is it called a task? Everybody calls them different things, right? And you can set a task date that you want to call them. Like guys, like it's my system. That's all I do. All I do is I talk to somebody, I put a note in and I set my next call date. And every day, the calls, the to-do calls get cleaned up. Every day. Like it's the one thing. Every day.
How long does it take? I'm just wondering,
Yeah. To do what?
to like go through everything, like all the calls.
So on most given days, I have 40 to 60 follow-up calls to make. It takes me 3 to 4 hours. Mhm.
So, and I'm imagining you leave a voicemail, right? If they don't pick up,
I leave a voicemail or send a text message.
whenever they call you back, what do you do? That freaks me out every single time
When they call you back.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, who is this?
Yeah. So a couple different things. Phones are really smart. Sometimes it'll tell me who's calling.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. So for me, because I'm a full-time lead generator, I have, most of the time I'm in front of my computer. So honestly, I'm typing in the phone number before I answer the phone. Who is this person? So I have it up in front of me. Honestly, like I get less callbacks now than I did 6 years ago. 6 years ago, I got tons of callbacks, right? I don't get that many callbacks anymore. I might get a text message back. But I look it up. And if you're not sure, so for me, I have a lot of name recognition. So a lot of times I remember the name and then I remember the story. But, again, right, it goes back to building rapport, like, hey, Mike, thanks for calling me. I'm not in front of my system. I can't quite remember why I called. Have we connected before? I'm in real estate. Have we connected maybe at an open house or talked about real estate? And a lot of times they'll tell you, right? And so, again, I just come that way like, hey, I'm so sorry, I'm not in front of my computer. I'm in real estate. Have we connected before? That's most similar, I think, to when for sale by owners call me back because they're not in my system. I have no idea who they are. And I'm like, hey, I'm in real estate. Like, are you looking to buy or sell a house? Oh, I have my house for sale by owner. Okay, perfect. What's the address?
Okay.
I'm getting that down. And then I just start going through my script. I don't have to have the for sale by owner pulled up in front of me. Awesome. Like, obviously I work with a team, you can tell by my voicemail, are you willing to work with the buyer's agent if you have a buyer to bring by? I just go through my whole script. Yeah. If it's like a buyer lead that called me back, sometimes you can always politely be like, you know what? I'm pulling up to my appointment here at, 2:16. And do you care if I call you back in an hour or two? Like, will you be available? Like, if you're feeling uncomfortable because you're not prepared to have a good conversation with them, then just politely be like, hey, I have an appointment here in a couple minutes that I'm pulling up to. Are you available at 4 o'clock today? I'll call you back. And then you can be back on the driver's seat. You can make that phone call. Yeah, that can be helpful. It talks a lot in this section, in the cultivate section, about 19 to connect, 1 to cement, 36 to convert. I'm assuming you guys are all familiar with those plans in command. Who uses those plans? Okay. Well, I do find plans to be helpful. I think I said this earlier, but I'll refresh again. I'm a manual kind of person. I like to manually reset my next call date. Again, I think phone is king. Yet some of these plans tell you when to call them. They're better off if they're in there and you have a phone and you have an email, like something's better than nothing, right? In a lot of cases, you can put them on like a 36 to convert and it's going to tell you when to call, or you can still call. So what I like to do is I like to do my first couple touches. So say I got an open house lead and they say they're not working with anybody. They seem motivated. They mentioned that their bank gave them a letter. Their timeline, they could kind of go either way because they're month to month on their rent, so they're not in a hurry. That person, I'm gonna like lead with phone calls the first couple calls. If I'm following back up with them again, at that point, that tells me our next step is to do an appointment, right? I might even use your piece and like send them some stuff. One of the things Adam used to do at open houses is he would also pull anything else available in that neighborhood or in that school system that somebody might like, that's comparable to the house he's opening. And so he knows what all the inventory is available. And so if somebody's mentioning that, oh, this isn't the one, well, there's actually these 3 other ones that are very comparable. Have you seen these? And, it's very similar to what You had mentioned with your, where you would text them inventory that they might like, like these other things are available, like, have you seen this? Like, have you considered this? That's definitely one way to do it. Some people do feel like you need to build a little bit of value before they'll agree to meet with you or sign with you. Yeah, definitely, I'm gonna do a very manual phone call. And then if I feel like they're farther away or they're not that interested or they're ghosting me, then I might put them on more of a plan and let the plan take over from there to a certain extent. If I have a lead that's not as hot and a little more passive, maybe I start with a plan too. So, and again, I think it has to do with your bandwidth. Early in your business, I would be really phone in person, face to face, like heavy, like any, until I think the plans are great, better than nothing. If you're not going to do anything, put them on a plan. Until you're so busy meeting people and taking appointments that you don't have time to follow up with all of those people, phone to phone, do phone to phone, like pick up the phone and call them. Think about it. If you're getting ready to make your biggest investment, are you going to do it with somebody who's just texting you or just sending you emails? Like, I'm a first time home buyer, like really excited, kind of nervous, like this huge investment, like really nervous about it, right? Like, am I going to do it with somebody who's texting me or emailing me? No, like I want to talk to somebody who's talking to me, is confident, and like that they know they can help me. And so definitely always go that way first. But all of those plans are in Command. Command has a really great library of plans. Once you've closed somebody, they have a neighborhood search, a neighborhood like monthly nurture, which is great for like an SOI, past client. I keep it on my house. It looks really, really good. Love that plan. And then they have like an anniversary. If you have a buyer that just closed, you put in their anniversary date and it sends them a text, every time their anniversary comes around. So those are some really great plans. I think there's birthday ones. Birthdays isn't something we keep information on, but they've got some really great plans like that for your SOI. And that neighborhood nurture, it's one touch a month and it only takes like a minute to set up. And it's really, anyway, it looks really good. I use it on my house. Let's see. I can beat that horse to death. When asking for, we're gonna talk about closing. Okay. When closing, when asking for the appointment, which format do you think is most effective? A, B, C, or D? I would agree. D, in person. Phone call. Phone call. So what they're saying is the least effective options are writing, text messages, emails, etc. Since you are not communicating together in real time, you cannot immediately respond to any issues or questions they might have. Phone calls and in-person options are going to have the best effect on your lead conversion. I think we've kind of talked about that over and over. When you are setting the appointment, what are the most important elements to schedule?
I'd say where and when.
Where and when? Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
Buying or selling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's your, or both, hopefully, buying and selling. Yeah, I would agree with that. Their response, I think your answers are great. That's exactly where I went. Their response is, you're not looking for just a yes, right? You're looking for them to actually agree to a time and a date, right? You know, so when I set a buyer or a listing, we have about 10, 12 questions that we are required to ask. And basically we're filling out a form that then goes to the agent that's going on the appointment, right? So if they're a buyer, I should have brought a copy of it. I should have brought a copy down. If they're a buyer, the basic questions are right phone, email, text, phone, email, where we're meeting. So we prefer to do our buyer appointments at the office. So typically it's the office. If they're out of state, we'll do them over the phone. So is it an office appointment or a phone appointment? Are they pre-approved? If so, who are they pre-approved with? What's their motivation? What's their time frame? What's important to them in the agent that they're going to hire? We use a lot of words about hiring an agent and things like that. So that's in there. You know, if everything looks good, if everything sounds good at the appointment and you think that we are a good match to help you find your house, are you willing to sign paperwork to activate the next step, right? We always bring up that there's paperwork to sign at the appointment. And so we have a list of questions. The listing one is a little bit heftier, right? So you're still a lot of the same things like motivation. Are they buying? If so what buyer agent are we assigning it to? How long have they been at the house? What are any upgrades that they've done recently? What are the 3 features they most love about the house? What are they looking for in an agent? Who are all the decision makers? When setting an appointment for a listing, who are all the decision makers? Sometimes they got an ex out there, guys, still tied to the house, and they know it and they don't want to tell you. Happens a lot. So don't ask. Are you, I don't know how, don't ask, how do I say? Don't ask like, you know, are you able to sign to sell the house, right? I'd be like, who are all the decision makers on selling the house? You know, again, open-ended question, right? We want to avoid yes and no questions unless it's relevant. If we can get all of them there, I mean, there's some trust situations where there's like 4 or 5 siblings that can be a little challenging to get everybody together. Because what happens is you'll give great information to the one person you met with, and then you're relying on that person to translate it to the other person. And it's tough to get that other person brought back around to coming in to sign. So if you're setting a listing, who are all the decision makers? You want them all there with you when you're going over your presentation.
Yeah, like it is a trust and like the siblings live like in different parts of the US or wherever. You guys smell it out or like DocuSign or?
Yeah, we'll DocuSign. And so everybody being present isn't really for the signatures. A lot of times our sellers prefer, I mean, DocuSign is 10 times easier.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you click, 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 you're done, right? People love it. So even when we meet with everybody, but it's really everybody hearing the presentation. And a lot of times it's why the number is the number. Because Joe that you meet with thinks 275 is great, but his brother Harry out in Washington is like, no way. It's at least 325, right? So Joe's fine to sign at 275, but you know, Harry over here won't sign unless it's 325. Well, Harry didn't get to hear the presentation and why the number is that number, right? So it's really to have everybody on the same page. So we've done it a couple different ways. Sometimes we've been fortunate enough, the family will all be there at some point in the future and we can meet them all there at the house. We put them all on the phone there for the, at least not while we're walking through the house maybe, but for the presentation. Or we've done a Zoom call with all of them and presented the information that way. Those can be a little bit challenging. The ex situation is tough. That one's been a tough one in the past, right? Because you really don't want to pick the agent that your ex wants to pick, right? Nobody does, so anyway, that can be difficult, but yeah, are all decision makers present, even when you're on the phone. So what's really interesting is phone, even at open houses, like when you guys meet couples at open houses, like, can you tell, like every couple has the decision maker, right? That's the phone number you really want. Because if the wife's the decision maker and you're chit chatting with the husband, I can't tell you how many times I've called the husband, oh yeah, I told my wife all about you and how great you are, but you know what? She found another agent and we already signed and it goes live tomorrow. Okay, great. And you just realize you've been wasting the last 3 months of your life with the person who's not the decision maker, right? So when you're getting information, you know, knowing who that is, because sometimes you'll get both spouses' information, right? You know, maybe make your primary contact the one that you feel is the decision maker. Because yeah, that's painful to follow up a lot and then find out that they're not the decision maker. Whoa. In the end, if they can meet and have a good enough reason to meet, they will meet. And if they don't, they won't. And that's okay. You really don't care what their answer ultimately is because you're not getting people to do anything they don't want to do. You're going to ask and respond until they agree that meeting with you makes sense or it doesn't. Either way, you both win. 100% agree with that. Sometimes a win is a no, right? Like it's a no, thank you, next. Like, right? Because, right, you guys are going to be like swimming in leads, right? You have so many leads you're not going to know what to do with. And a no can be helpful too, right? Great. That's one person I can take off my list and put somebody else back on. Like a no's okay, right? What's most frustrating, I think it was maybe Corinne talked about it this morning or yesterday, is, you know, the people that don't respond or like string you along, and you can tell it's because they don't want to hurt your feelings. Like they're not mean people, but you know, just be straight. And we also have to look at ourselves and say, what questions did I not ask that didn't get me a yes or, you know, a straight answer from them? But yeah, I mean, right, we don't want to follow up with people that don't want to work with us. There are plenty of people out there that want to work with all of you, right? We just have to go find those people because they're out there, and not let our follow-ups get cluttered with people that really don't want to transact with us and that aren't just not that serious. Like let them go and go find somebody that's better, right? You'll hear people talk about like top rating. I mean, maybe like their sports team, right? You start a sports team and you constantly trade for better talent, right? You know, you're top grading your talent all the time. Your pipeline's no different, right? The better your pipeline gets, the less, right? Like you being newer in the business, you're totally cool dealing with the FSBO that wants to text you, right? For somebody like me who's doing it for 6 years, like that's not even on my radar, right? Because it doesn't hit the standard of what's in it's not better than the other stuff I have in my pipeline, right? But if I had a pipeline of 20 people, I'm totally talking to that FSBO, right? Because at least I'm having a conversation with somebody who wants to sell a house, right? So I'm going to follow up with them, but you're constantly top grading your pipeline until, you know, you're running, and then you don't have to let just everybody in, right? Because now you're a commodity and you get to choose who you do business with, right? Because you have so much abundance, you have so much business there ready to go. It's pretty cool. All right, do you guys have any ahas, anything to share? Okay, so the next step is conversion rates. It's our next section. I think it's our last section. What is, I'd love to hear a couple takeaways. What's one thing you're gonna do different in your follow-up that you weren't doing before?
Have a system.
I love it. What does that look like for you? What's a system look like for you?
I don't know yet.
I love it.
Framework.
I love it. Well, I'm on the third floor, second floor, I guess it's third from down here, but you're welcome to come see me if you need help with that. But yeah, get a system, like get that next follow-up date set. Like you will forget. I forget. I love it. Anybody else have a takeaway?
Just that, you know, I'll figure out a way to where I can be actively putting the notes down while I'm on the phone, rather than after the fact. Because then, you know, I'll forget and it's bad.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Great job, guys. I love those takeaways. Okay, conversion rates. What do they say about conversion rates? You learn the model, steps, and actions it takes to convert a lead to an appointment. You're going to dig deeper into what a conversion rate is and how to inform and how it can inform your business decision. Your conversion rate refers to a percentage of leads you ask an appointment for and those that agree to an appointment. For example, you may ask 10 leads for an appointment and succeed in setting 8 appointments. That's an 80% conversion rate. Your ultimate goal is to increase your skill so that you can convert at the highest percentage possible. The higher the percentage, the more leads have converted to appointments. If you are converting a low percentage, this would tell you that you have a lead conversion challenge. The challenge is not the number of leads you generated, but your ability to get them to an appointment. They said there's a conversion rate on your participation guide. Does that have you fill in stuff? Let me see what it says. Okay, let's go ahead and fill this out. Let's do it this way and then I will, yeah. So yeah, you're gonna fill out A, B, C, and D. So this is page 11.31. How many new people do you, it says make a week. I think it means meet. I'm gonna assume, let's say it says meet a week, right? And then the next one is how many of those meet your definition of a lead, right? So how many, to me, that's saying how many of those are we actually putting in the system, right? So there's the number of people you meet. So I would actually change that. So A, I would make how many people am I talking to a week, right? And B would be how many of those people am I adding to the system? Okay, and then how many people am I setting an appointment for? And then how many of those appointments become signed contracts? And if you don't want to do a week, do a month, pick a time frame that gives you some data. Guys, it's a good thing our meeting got moved to today because I was sick as a dog Wednesday. I would not have been here. Oh. I don't know about anybody else. Did you guys enjoy the snow day? It's a pretty snow.
Wait, if you're sick, do you still make phone calls?
I do. It depends on my level of sickness. I honestly feel like if you sound a little bit like congested and stuff, like people are like, are you okay? Like you sound a little sick. Like it's a good like rapport builder. You know, you get good stuff. I mean, I was like fever, like I was sick.
What do you do when you lose your voice for your job?
I called Christina. I was like, Christina, I can't talk today. I mean, then you have to default to text messages. And I'm like, oh, yeah. I mean, like it was the type of strep, like, I mean, my throat hurts about it. I couldn't talk, but yeah, it's not good. Yeah, you basically just have to call it a day, or, I mean, we have some admin work, you know, our ISAs keep our database clean right now, so there's always things to clean out and like plans to put on and sort. And when you start plans, it typically starts with a text or an email, so you typically get a large volume of those, of responses from those. So if I was sick and couldn't talk, but like not so sick, I didn't want to work, that's probably something I would do, but yeah, not that day. Well, I had my kids home that day too, so a double, like a double whammy. 10 appointments. Okay, this is gonna get a little. Okay, so who wants to be a guinea pig? Who wants to share their numbers? No? Anybody want to share? No? Who tracks their numbers? Who actually has an answer that they feel like is accurate? Nobody?
I have enough
Yeah,
to work with.
yeah, no, I totally get that. Super, super common. And most people, I don't think, pay a lot of attention to this, so it's it's fine. But I will tell you that the conversion ratio is what makes lead generation predictable. So what that means is, especially if you're new here, you might be like, on a wish and a prayer, hoping all this stuff comes together and you get closings, right? And as you start to get those closings, there's a pattern based on your numbers. You have to track your numbers. And when I first started, I had the privilege of coaching with Anna Kruger, who's an awesome ISA coach. So she runs a whole MAPS program for inside sales agents. And I had the privilege of coaching with her from the day I started. And she gave me a spreadsheet. And I have these at my office again. If you're interested, you want to know more about this, you need some spreadsheets or something to get started, come see me upstairs. I'm happy to help. But she has me track all my numbers. So every inside sales agent has a piece of paper every day, and it has a grid box up here at the top. And it goes up to, I think, like 150. Every dial, so we actually will track dials sometimes. So every time you dial a number, you check a box, right? And then it has, our goal is 40 contacts a day, right? So there's 40 lines through here and they're numbered, so you know what number you're on. Every time you talk to somebody, you write down who you talk to. And there's a little note, like I would put little notes here. There's a spot for like a source, but every day we fill out one of these. It's a date, you put the date on top, put your name. We fill this out. And then every night there is a group text message in our team. And mine looks like this. 40 contacts, 2 set, 1 held, 1 signed. Right? I report that out to my team every workday. I also, this sheet is what I report out. And then I take the sheet every morning for the previous, so today I would have had yesterday's, right? So every morning I take the sheet from the day before and I put it in a spreadsheet. So I have a spreadsheet that has the date. And then there's a column for contacts, appointments, people that showed up to the appointment. So we call it held, right? Did they sign, right? There's a sign. And then we always go to close. I personally don't track pended very closely. Agents would track pended, right? Because agents want to know what their conversion is from signature to pended, right? So as an agent, I would totally track pended. And I'm putting that in every day. And all I'm doing is putting a tally mark or a number in the box that represents what happened that day. And what will happen, it's not going to take you very long at all, but you're going to have history, right? Right, so this is history, right? 10 contacts in a week, got me 10 appointments, 8 showed up, 6 held, and 5 closed, right? And what you can do with that is, what's somebody's financial goal in 2023? Anybody want to share what their financial goal is? Maybe not yours. What's a common financial goal for people in real estate?
to hit cap.
How many houses would you have to sell to hit cap?
Didn't it average around 10 or 12?
Okay. Okay, we could do the math for that. We'll go back and do the math for that. But let's just say, I hear a lot of people say $100,000, right? I want to make $100,000. What's your average? Does anybody know the average commission check in the Springfield area?
5,000.
5,000, okay. So if we wanted to make $100,000, we're gonna divide that by 5,000. We get 20 transactions. Okay, so 20 transactions would get you $100,000. Okay, now that's before expenses and all that great stuff. Okay, so if we know 100 contacts gets us 5 closings. How many contacts do you need to get 20 closings? 400, that's exactly right. Now these conversion rate, honestly, the numbers probably for 100, you're probably not even gonna get 1 closing. Like if I'm giving you an honest conversion, and I can rewrite that to be honest, but then I got down into fractions and I got real nervous and I just stopped and I changed. I changed it. Most likely this is 1,000. Okay, so let's say this is really 1,000. It's most likely more like 1,000. This one doesn't work. I should throw it away the first time. So if it takes 1,000 contacts to get 10 appointments, that 8 show up, 6 sign, and 5 close. Well, now you know you need to do 4,000 contacts this year to make $100,000. How many contacts would you have to make? How many days do most people work in real estate? 5 a week. And you don't typically work all 52 weeks, right? We take vacation, we're sick, you know, whatever, things come up. So typically I would do it off of like 48 weeks, right? We typically work probably 45 to 48 weeks, depending on how much vacation you take. So if you had to do, if you knew, now again, this is based on your conversion, right? Pretend you're tracking and this is your honest conversion, right? You can say, well, if I want to make $100,000 and I need to talk to 4,000 people to close 20 units to make $100,000, then I would divide the 4,000 contacts by 48 weeks. That's 83 contacts a week. You can divide that by 5. 16, rounded up to 17 contacts a day, right? So this 4,000 contacts seems like a ton, right? But if you're realistic about the days you're working, right, it's 17 people a day. If you talk to 17 people a day, and these are your true conversions.
Use contact or actual conversations?
Those are conversations. So we're talking about real estate. Mhm. Again, it's your metrics. So it's whatever you call a conversation. Right? So the power of tracking is so important, right? It takes what feels a little bit like this as a sales job and it makes it super, super, super predictable. If you'll take, 1 minute out of every day and put your numbers in, like you'll know exactly what you need to do. And you'll know when you get better or worse, right? You can look at month over month or year over year trends and say, so one of the biggest things I found is 3 years ago, I had a 10% conversion, right? If I talked to 100 people, I got 10 appointments, right? What did I tell you guys earlier? Right now, we're at like 4%. That's less than half. My skill hasn't gotten any worse. I don't think so. I don't think I'm less talented or that I was 4 years ago. Yet the market's different, and that's something that, when you do track your numbers, right? Understanding that some of the trends don't have anything to do with you personally, but sometimes it's just the market. So now, right? And so now I know I have to make a gap. If I still want this, but it's going to take me twice as many of these, well, I now have to do 8,000 contacts this year. How am I going to do 8,000 contacts? Right? I'm going to put some of my people on those plans. I'm going to let technology help contact those people for me. That's one thing I'm going to do. Right? I'm going to say, well, like, are there any gaps? Like, could I be better in any of these areas to make my conversion better? Like, what if I got all 10 people to show up? That would be a way, that could be a way to solve it. So you can start looking at your follow-up and your database as a business, right? This is a business, right? Calling people, hoping you remember to call people sometime in the future, right? That's not super systematic. And you're gonna struggle to create consistency, but this creates consistency. And you can very easily tell yourself, well, I want to make this. And when you look at it, sometimes I want to make this and I look at it and I'm like, well, I am not willing to do that much work. Can't do it. Like, and that's my own personal thing, right? So then sometimes I have to recenter my goals with what I'm willing to do, right? Great, you want to make $200,000. Well, I don't really want to talk to 78 people every day. I don't want to do it. I don't think I have the bandwidth to do that. Well, how, could I fix anything else in here that would get me that? Nope. Okay, well then I might have to recenter my goal. This year, I'm not willing to do that for this goal, right? The goal wasn't that important, right? And so it gives you a really great way when you're planning like your month or your year to say, what's my goal? And realistically, am I willing to do the work it's going to take to hit that goal? So anyway, super passionate about this. I love it. There's some really great systems that are fairly expensive that will do stuff like that for you. But good old spreadsheet, once you have the data in there, the spreadsheet will let you compute it any way you want to. Do you guys have any questions on conversions? Okay. Awesome.
As a team, how many people do you guys talk to per year, roughly? Or does it grow every year?
It grows every year. I'm trying to remember. I feel like it was either a 6 or a 9. It was like something like 68,000 people we talked to last year, or 96,000 people. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people. Most of my ISAs that are full-time, like they don't have anything else on their plate besides lead generating, they were in that 9,000 to 10,000 a year they were talking to. Yeah. So they talk to, but again, right, I think some of that, it's not inflated, but technology is there, right? To talk to more people, we sometimes have to rely on technology. Well, that contact is not as good as a voice-to-voice contact. So that contact now has your automated response, like, hey, not really interested, or maybe in a year or two, like you have some of that mixed in with like really great phone conversation. And so I think what it's doing, it's not that my skill isn't as good, but it's taking more contacts to get the appointment, and we're using technology, which lowers the value of the contact. Yeah. So with the answer rate currently, it is challenging to get 40 a day. It's not impossible, it's really challenging. And the 40 a day comes from, what does the MREA teach us, right? The job of an agent is to lead generate 20 contacts a day, right? For half the day, from 9 to 12. And then from 12 on, they're supposed to go to appointments. And then they're supposed to negotiate contracts. There's one other thing they're supposed to do. Script and role play. Thank you. So great job. So it's supposed to script and role play. And so that's where we got the number for the ISA. 40 is kind of the magic number, right? If you're a full-time lead generator, you're not taking appointments. So you should be able to lead generate the second half of the day too. So that's kind of where 40 came from. It's still pretty relevant. A lot of my ISAs are 40 to 50. Again, with technology and having more plans running on people and things like that, it's definitely diluting the value of a contact a little bit. So it is, but we track it. And so when my ISAs come to me, they come to me every year and they have a goal, like, Claire, I want to make a 65,000, I want to make 85,000, whatever that is. And we literally pull up their conversions. And for them, it's not how much they're getting a piece of the commission, so their commission's much lower. But we calculate how much they get on average per deal, divide that into their number, and that's how we get how many closings they need. And then we work all the way backwards to determine how many people they need to talk to every day. And I did some of them last year and it was bad. Like it was like 168 people a day. Okay, well, we have to fix something or, is that goal still something you want to do? Like, it's never my decision, it's their decision. We have some standards, their goal, like for it to make sense for that person to be on our team, they need to do so much production. So it's got to be above that, but other than that, their goal is pretty much, whatever they want it to be. Yeah, so I say role's a little more interesting than an agent just because it's half salary and half commission. They're getting typically right around 5% of the commission. So if it's if we get a $5,000 paycheck, they're getting 500, we're getting 250. Yeah, you get 250. But all they're doing is setting it and making sure it shows up. Our job is to make sure it shows up and that they're prepared to sign if everything goes well, right? The agent's taking it from there. And then the transaction coordinator takes it from under contract to close. So, well, very good. Okay, let's see if there's anything else in here. Talked about all this. Okay, any more ahas, guys? Ahas to achievement. Does anybody else, does anybody else have something they're implementing that they want to share with everybody? All right. Very good. Okay, so the next piece is the success system, which I ran a little long. I got pretty chatty, guys. Do you guys know what that is? It says 20 minutes of role play. You guys typically do that while you're here?
An hour after.
An hour after. Was I supposed to stop an hour ago?
No.
Okay. You guys have another hour after this. Oh, so I'm right on time. Okay. Well, very good. Well, I will let you guys get on with your role play. It looks like there's 10 minutes to preparing a call list for the day. 45 minutes to making the contacts, and then 30 minutes to update your database. And I'll hang around for a little bit if you guys have questions, want to talk about anything, you need help, have questions on scripts or role play, let me know. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fun.
I never talked to like, hang on, what's the channel?
On Wednesdays
Yeah,
with
Shanna.
Not with Shanna.
I was just gonna see if we could practice some role play
Sure.
on open houses and building networking.
Okay.
Cause I feel like sometimes I start asking, not open and then ended enough. They're very short with their answers, but.
Sure. Do you want me to be the agent or do you want to be the agent?
I will have you be the agent for the first.
Okay.
I'll switch.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for coming in to see the house today. What has you out looking at homes today?
Oh, just saw the sign and thought I would pop in.
Okay, awesome. Do you live in the area?
Yeah, I live about 2 neighborhoods over.
Okay, so you're really close by. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice neighborhood, I like the people around me,
Mhm.
and so I was curious of how the inside of this house looked.
Oh, okay. Awesome. How long have you been at your house?
I'd say probably about 2-3 years now.
Okay, it's amazing. That's amazing. Is it still working for you?
And that's kind of where I'm at, I think I'm looking for something a bit bigger.
Okay. Awesome. Is this house, is this one quite a bit bigger than what you have?
Yeah, I would say so. It's got 2 extra bedrooms, which is the real appeal.
Oh, okay. What's important about the 2 extra bedrooms?
Well, it might sound a bit silly, but pets, a room for pets. And
Okay,
then another room for guests, because I sometimes have family that stays over.
okay, awesome. That's great. That's great. How have you been looking at houses? Are you just going to open houses or is this the first house you've been to?
I've just started going to open houses, so this is the first.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here. Just out of curiosity, the market has been really, really great the last couple of years. You probably bought at a really amazing time. Have you had an evaluation on your current house recently?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Do you have any interest in knowing what it might sell for in this current market?
I'm not really sure right now. But I guess it couldn't hurt.
Yeah. When would be a good time for me to come over and do that with you?
I could probably do 2 days from now.
Okay. Perfect. And I give them a time, it's around a time. Yeah. You're probably a little more open to talking than most people you're getting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to
Yeah.
imagine how they would do it.
I struggle with bad cop on Scrum role play, I'll be honest. I struggle with bad cop. But yeah. So it's really just digging, a couple other questions I might have asked. I'm assuming a little bit in the direction I took it. Do you know if you have to sell to purchase? Like, have you talked to a lender? Yeah, can I help with that? I might have even dug on why 2 more bedrooms are important with the animals. Like, do they need their own space? Like, what's that look
Backyard
like?
space.
Yeah. So I might have done some stuff like that. But typically, if they're a move up buyer and they're buying and selling, most of the time they have to sell to buy. Not all. I mean, some people are much more cash fluent than it, but in general, most people have put a mortgage on their property and the bank won't give them a second mortgage unless they sell the one they have. And that's why anytime somebody needs to sell and buy and the mortgage, and they have to sell to buy. To me, the listing is more important than the buyer consult. I can't buy if they don't sell. So we gotta start with sell. Just like if somebody wants to come in and meet my team for a buyer, it doesn't matter if they're not pre-approved. Now a past client's son that wants to buy and he's starting the process, probably gonna do something like that, but so it's the same thing with them, right? Until we know. And a lot of times what they sell their house for can determine their budget on their purchase. And so that's why the evaluation on their home is so important, because sometimes they don't know, they might have more or less equity than they think, which can change their target price on their next purchase. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. But that gets you in the door of their house.
Right. And it's good to know. I mean, I'm glad you say that because I wouldn't necessarily have realized, just from conversation that like most buyers need to sell their house before.
Yeah.
So it leads to good questions.
Sure.
Sniff that out.
And again, I assumed I could have just asked just out of curiosity, are you going to be selling or do you need to sell to buy, or even do you plan to sell your current home, or are you going to keep it as a rental? Which can kind of answer do you need to sell to buy? They can't keep it as a rental. But sometimes they won't know that if they don't talk to a lender either. So the lender is the one that will tell them if they have enough debt to income ratio to afford another house on top of the one they have. Basically, to own both homes at the same time, you have to qualify for a mortgage that supports the payment on both houses at the same time. Most people can't do that. I can't do that. Yeah. What's an objection that you've gotten that's kind of stumped you before?
Well, for my very first open house, I'm realizing now that I was just very unprepared. Like I feel if I go to do an open house now, I feel a lot more confident in asking the questions like, where do you live around here? Or because I would ask them, that same exact question, do you live around the area? And they would say yes or no. And I would just kind of leave it there. I wouldn't know where else to go after that. Very awkward. But, now I can really pinpoint, what do you like about this house? And then when they give that answer, I could really get into their motivations, like how we were talking with the bedrooms, and, why is that important? So.
Yeah. one of the things Carrie does in her buyer consults, which I think can be helpful, you might not be able to go into all this detail at an open house, is when somebody comes in and meets with her and they're like, I want a 5-bedroom house. And she's like, that's awesome. Tell me what you're gonna do with each room. And she literally goes through bedroom number 1, what's that for? Bedroom number 2. Because she's like, what you'll find out is maybe they only need 4 bedrooms and an office, which changes her search a little bit, right? Or maybe they really only need 3 rooms, but they really want a basement. So they assume they need 5 bedrooms to get the basement. They really want a basement house, but it just needs to have at least 3 bedrooms. You know, so yeah, you find out things like, you know, what are you gonna do in each of those rooms? And so those are kind of great, what's each room for? And that can be helpful. You know, when you're looking at like setting up a search or like sending inventory to people.
And another thing I just remembered, now the just looking, I kind of fumble when anybody just says that they're just looking. I don't
Yeah.
always quite know where to go after that. You know, sometimes it's quite curt and short, just looking. You know?
Sure. So there's a couple of different ways you can respond to that. One is a lot of this, gotta make sure your tone is right, because when you combat some of this, you can kind of come off as combative. So, you know, some fake laughing, like a big smile on your face always goes a long way. But like, oh my gosh, I get so many people are just like that. You know, you could be doing anything on this beautiful day. You know, you can be watching the Chiefs game, like, why look at houses, and just ask them again. You know, when people do that a lot via text message on our system, and you know, you could be, you know, shopping on Amazon today, like, why are you out looking at houses? And we just ask again. The other one is, I have the other one, just looking. Oh, you know, like, hey, totally get that. I get it. You know, most people start looking, you know, 6 to 12 months before they actually make a move. Like, what's your time frame look like?
Oh, that's nice. Awesome.
Yeah, so you're basically relating them like, so yeah, everybody does that. I totally get it. And you're kind of setting a standard, and you're also giving numbers that they can then say, oh, like, oh no, we need to move, like, we're gonna do something in the next, or like, oh yeah, like, we're way beyond 12 months. Like, we really love our house, like, just curious. I also think some people do open houses, especially if it's like a remodeled one, to get ideas for their house. So if they're not acting like they're interested, sometimes I'll ask, like, you know, do you have any projects planned for your house and things like that? Because sometimes they're just looking at ideas and like what other floor plans in their neighborhood look like.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, some of them are just looky loose.
But if
But
I
so-
can
yeah.
figure that out, I
Yeah.
could, you know, offer them a CMA, you know, because that would help with their remodeling efforts.
I think it's just doing a little bit more than we were doing before, asking one more question, and then 2 more questions, 3 more questions, and are really getting down to, is this somebody that we want to try to follow up with or not? You know, if you put everybody, what I see a lot of new lead generators do, right? Again, we talked about this, when you're new, your entry level for following up with somebody is really, really low. And so the more you start asking people questions and getting to know people, the more you can easily kind of determine, hey, is this somebody that I should put in my follow-up system right now? So that could be helpful.
I think of whenever someone says just looking, I just say, that's great, or something like you just said, great, like, hey, give me a favor when you're done, let me know if it was like what you expected or not. It's like you kind of catch it, let them look, because they're like saying bug off lady, right?
Yeah.
And so like when they come back around, be like, hey, I know you're just looking today, was it what you expected? And then they have to answer yes or no and why. So like you're kind of digging. But you back off, but now guess what? It's my turn again. So you kind of just let them play, but then just don't let them walk out. And
Yeah,
I mean, why not ask them?
sure.
Was it what you expected? And then you can figure out, are they just a nosy neighbor? Does your house compare to this one?
Mhm.
And then you can be like, hey, if you give me your email address, like, I don't be like pushy, but like, I can send you other comps in this neighborhood as they come up. You obviously like to look at the other ones.
Mhm.
Why not, get that hand delivered to you?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
you can work it in a different way.
Yeah.
Cause you'll get rude people. You just have to like, just get over it and be,
Mhm.
like, set yourself up to be like, meet all the rude people possible for an open house. And then like, you're not disappointed. And then you just, I hate to say it, but you kind of just make a game out of it. And you're like, how can I get this person to talk?
I think too, I've seen a couple of our agents, for them, if they get 8 people and they get 1 or 2 decent people to follow up with, that's a win to them. So know that if 8 people come in and you get 1 or 2 to have a good interaction with you and get their information, that's a pretty good win. I think if you're setting yourself up that if you don't get all 8, you failed, you're gonna feel like you failed all the time. So give yourself some realistic expectations. And then like you had mentioned, I almost would tie the two, you mentioned this, you give people like a feedback form,
Yeah.
right? That's a really great way of not engaging a lot at the beginning, but circling up at the end, like she mentioned, right? Hey, the sellers would love to know who was here and also your feedback. So any feedback you can give them would be amazing, So I'm sure you probably have so many on a clipboard already set up, right? So he's handing them a clipboard and then it kind of forces them to a certain extent to check back with you at the end. And then you can kind of go through, maybe their defenses are a little bit lower at that point.
I feel like they are. That's my best.
And people like to give their opinion too, right?
Are you like, what was your favorite feature of the house? Like, okay, what was the worst, like, what was the deal, not the deal maker, but like what killed it for you? Why this isn't working?
Yeah.
See, I'm so conflicted on rather if I want to give because I have the clipboard too with a section for feedback on it. I don't know if I want to give that at the beginning or at the end, which I guess I can play around with it and, make it a game and see on my next open house, which does better. Because, the first one didn't quite go so well, just handing it to them. But now with my added knowledge with the line of questioning, I feel like it would go better and they would be more receptive to answering it. But I don't know if offering them that clipboard right out the gate kind of brings that guard way up.
Yeah, you may look at the questions on it. I feel like the ones I've seen, the questions, I think the reason they do it on a clipboard is it gives people the chance to like be answering it as they go through, because it doesn't talk about maybe certain rooms or certain features of the house or.
Mine has like their contact info, how they heard of us, or the open house, and then comments, and like a scale from 1 to 10, like, I don't know.
Yeah. So I think the point of the clipboard is that they can kind of do it as they go through and not feel like it's going to slow them down at the end.
Yeah, see, I don't want to
Yeah,
tell anybody
yeah.
keep them there longer than they have to.
Yeah, because if it feels like it's a entryway to leave, then they might feel a little caged or something. But I've seen some that talk about like there's 4 or 5 features of the house that it asks for information on. And so it was helpful as they kind of went room to room to do it. But yeah, and you can make your own contact form too. Like you can pick and choose whatever questions are best for you. And some people, if there's any real techie people in here, you can easily do like a QR code that takes you to like an open house. You can create like an open house landing page and create like a little QR code. People can scan it with their phone and it takes them to like a fill out form thing. And then it automatically puts it in command. So you don't have to remember to put in command or put follow up on it. Also, then you can tell command. So lead routing is amazing. You can tell command, anybody that comes in from an open house, I want you to start this plan on. So that's how I use technology. So my CRM, every source that comes in has a rule, and that rule is assigning it to an agent, starting a plan and putting a reminder on the calendar. So I don't have to touch it. Every lead that comes in, the system knows exactly what to do with it. So those are some of the ways, like as you start growing your business and you have all these leads coming in, that you can kind of use technology to make your life a little simpler. I'm not overly techie when it comes to the open house piece. I do it old school. And I'll be honest, I don't do all that many. Turns out that I'm much better on the phone than in person. A little awkward. Also turns out I can't buy things like a car at a lot. Like I don't know how to negotiate. I have to call them back from my phone later. I'm gonna leave you guys alone. I just get awkward. But everybody's different. So. Yeah, I honestly found it fairly awkward at open houses. I do them occasionally. So I'm one of the only team members that lives north of town. And so I am the kind of the first line of defense if they need a showing or something north of town. Because I'm not driving south of town on the weekend to help them. They all live south of town, they can go do that. But if they need something north of town, so I do showings and stuff like that occasionally. But, results. I make more money, 2 hours on the phone, I can make more money than 2 hours out of the house. So everybody has their talents, so. Guys have anything else?